Nebraska, and I'm running for school board because frankly, Madison schools are in trouble. And I think it's time that we have some straight talk and not the same platitudes. A week ago Monday, some students, about 15 to 20, after school went to Lakeview Library, and they didn't obey the librarian. They caused a ruckus and they called the police. Despite the garbage throwing and knocking over bookshelves, which is disturbing enough, what disturbed me the most was some of those students said, "We don't have to listen to the police. You can't touch us." Well, they didn't have to listen to the librarian. My guess is they're not listening to the teacher. That's a problem. In later life, they're going to have some real problems. I've heard from so many teachers, bus drivers, custodians. A lunch lady at one of Madison schools, Trish Marks, said, "I've been employed for almost 15 years. I've seen so many teachers retire early because it's nearly impossible to teach and do their jobs. The behavior issues are just getting worse. I feel sad for the teachers, the kids that are trying to learn with so much disruption, the kids with behavior problems because they have the illusion that they can treat teachers and staff however they want." So just yesterday, what did we see? In the Madison School Board, they can't even control their own meetings. They have to retreat behind closed doors. And what were they discussing behind closed doors? Behavior education plan. So I think that's a problem that is taking away control of the classroom from the teachers. I would say return it to the teachers. I get a lot of advice when you run for office. I'm sure I share that with the other five up here on the podium today. And someone said you should make headlines, David, by calling for Jennifer Cheatham's resignation today. I don't do that because she's working for the school board. She's absolutely following the school board's instructions. She's doing what the school board tells her to do, which unfortunately has been to throw teachers under the bus. At 2 school board meetings ago, the one before this last one, I was the lone person to speak up and say, hold your fire until we get all the facts in on that case at the Whitehorse Middle School. We had heard from a parent, and presumably from the child, but we had not heard from the police report. We had never even talked to our own employees, that is the school district's employees, the teachers, and the special ed person, and the positive behavior coach, who it turns out is a nationally known expert in this. He accompanied Jennifer Cheatham to Washington, D.C. to give us a symposium on restorative justice. But he was thrown under the bus, and I said then, with a very powerful statement from Mary Burke and from Jennifer Cheatham, I said, he'll never again teach in the Madison Public School. And God help him, he probably won't teach anywhere else either, because that stain is going to be on him, despite the fact that the district attorney cleared him. So and the teachers see this, and they feel this, and they say, I got to think, if I'm the next positive behavior coach, am I going to respond to that call, or am I going to say, I'm going to clock out here, I'm on my lunch break?
Thank you. Ali, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, so the superintendent serves at the pleasure of the board. And I think that there are areas of strength and areas of weakness within Jen.
1,246 students transferred out of Madison Public Schools through the open enrollment plan. Now those are Madison residents. Their parents are going to vote. But do you think they're going to vote to improve Madison schools? And that doesn't count the number of vouchers, independent charters, parochial schools. This is the enrollment increase that we've had in Madison. These are people voting with their feet compared with our suburban schools, McFarland and whatnot, Wanakee. This is Madison here. People are not voting for Madison Public Schools. We've got to restore their trust.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to use an orange card? All right, moving on to our next question for Chris. The Personalized Pathways Initiative allows students to enroll in classes organized around a theme such as health services or information technology and communication. If you are elected, will you support wall-to-wall or universal pathways? Put differently, do you think all Madison school students should or will select a pathway?
I think talking about school safety is not a sensationalized thing. It's something I do in my day job at the Gay Straight Alliance for Safe Schools every day. And that means talking about bullying at school. That means talking about making sure students have access to mental health support. That means investing in counselors and teachers and relationships for young people. Criminalizing young people at school is not a necessity of learning. And I think that schools need to invest in educators and need to invest in students and not the police.
And then I get the...
Yep, you get 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I think police go where there's trouble, and there's trouble in our schools. I'm at the point now where we have to consider, I think, having school resource officers in our middle schools. You know, the three of the four school resource officers we have are African American men, and the fourth is an Hispanic female. Everything I've heard, the teachers love them, the schools love them, no principal, no PTO, no responsible civil rights organization has asked that they be removed. And for many cases, those SROs and those teachers may well be the only responsible adult those kids see that week. I think they're powerful role models.
Would anyone like to use their orange cards to chime in as well? Okay. We'll move on to the next question, which is for Ananda. What is your opinion on the recent White Horse Middle School incident? What lessons and action steps we will do, Chris, and then Colleen?
Is that me? Okay. Well, I just, I would encourage again people to read the police report. I don't think any teacher signs up to be pummeled in the face, to have his glasses knocked off his head, and to the point where his face is reddened. And that's what happened to Mr. Rob, as the kids themselves called him. If you read the police reports, I think some 80 pages, they talk to the teacher in the school, Mrs. Peach, something like that. They talk to the kids. And they all say that the little girl, when she wouldn't leave, the 11-year-old, when she wouldn't leave the class, Mr. Rob said, well, then we'll evacuate the class itself, except that she tried to prevent that by closing the door. Struggle ensued over that door, and when the struggle ended, the little girl started pummeling the teacher. I don't think teachers sign up for that. And to throw that teacher on the bus, I think, is very destructive to all students who want to learn, teachers who want to teach.
Chris?
So this incident never should have happened. A child should never be harmed in our schools, and it shows we have systemic failure. I agree with what TJ said about.
Well, I think in my case, I had the great pleasure of working for Tommy Thompson, and I can truly say that he does not have a mean bone in his body. I'm not sure I can say that, but he did, and I admire that about him. He reached out continually to Democrats to the other side of the aisle and got a lot of things done, and appointed Democrats to key positions. And we have some of the folks here are able to send their kids to charter schools thanks to Tommy Thompson. School Choice, he started School Choice and gave kids, especially 28,000, mainly all poverty-stricken, mainly minority students in Milwaukee, a chance at a better education. I also would say my brother Mike, when I first got elected to the county board, I was very worried about taking a vote. He said, never mind. I said, well, I want to get reelected. He said, never mind about getting reelected. Just do what you think is right, and if you're supposed to get reelected, you will.
Mine I brought.
I guess David has an orange card.
One of the first things that got me into caring at all about schools was, or the Urban League's proposed Madison Prep. It's just a shame that Madison School District lost Claim Care, drove them out, and they chose the teachers union first, the students second. He had some ideas, but they weren't willing to try them. And I think it wasn't because they were afraid those ideas would fail, it was because they were afraid those ideas would succeed.
Would anyone else like to chime in? Awesome. We'll move on to our next question, which is for David. Despite having a revamped behavior education plan, some people have worries that the BEP seemingly permits disruptive students to stay in the classroom, creating disruptions for other students and staff under the assumption that having that student in class is better than a suspension. Is it working? What other strategies should the Madison School District utilize to deal with behavior issues?
Well, no, it's not working. In fact, it's part of the problem. Again, I'll just quote here a magazine, threatening lawsuits if the administrators did not comply with the guidance letter that I talked about in January 2014. That letter coerced many school systems into adopting illegal racial quotas in their disciplinary decision-making. And the New York Times reported that the Safety Commission had found that the focus on race over safety has made schools more dangerous. Here's a quote, there's overwhelming evidence that the Obama-era policies culminating in this Dear Colleague letter pushed schools to avoid disciplining students who needed to be disciplined. It made avoiding politically incorrect numbers more important than maintaining school safety. The Chicago Tribune came out and said, one of the greatest civil rights of all is the right to have an education, unimpeded. We talk about that 11-year-old girl at Whitehorse. From what Colleen says, that child shouldn't have been in that class at all. But we won't do that in Madison. We won't pull the child out of the class. That child resisted being pulled out of that class. Discipline has been taken away from the classroom where the teacher knows that Johnny and Billy over there are pretty good kids, except when they get together. That teacher knows the dynamic of that classroom. That principal knows the dynamic of that school. But we have offloaded control to the overly legalistic 82-page, 5 levels of responses, something like 60 different definitions. The latest tweak on that is defining what parts of the body that you cannot touch as to what level of response it is indicated. I swear to God that the juvenile criminal code is not as complex.
Ali, would you like to respond?
I don't think the juvenile criminal code is what we want to base education on. I think when we're living in a time period in which we're recognizing what happened at Lincoln Hills was abuse of children. I think incarcerating young people is developmentally inappropriate. I think exclusionary practices have not been proven to benefit anybody. There is no study that says the more you suspend one kid, the better another kid learns. That's not.
At least co-wrote the Progressive Dating platform on education, and not only does it call for getting rid of the school resource officers, and maybe you've backed off of that, I appreciate that, but it also calls for providing legal counsel to children facing disciplinary action in the schools. Legal counsel. I presume that's taxpayer supported. We're going to lawyerize the classroom. Is that a step forward or is that a step backward?
Are there any other orange cards? Yeah, we'll start with Ali and work our way back.
I think it's really important that we talk about developmentally appropriate approaches to student discipline. And I think my primary critique of the behavior education plan is that the behavior education plan puts too much onus and responsibility on teachers for the behavior of students. I think that what we need to do is equip our students with the skills to resolve conflict independently throughout their education. So giving young people, support in navigating, hard conversations that they need to have with their peers, or establishing boundaries around things that they don't like. I think labeling kids as disruptive disproportionately impacts students with disabilities and disproportionately impacts students of color.
Could you repeat that? I just want to make sure I answered it correctly.
Just agree with me.
Yeah, the question is,
Give me that one again.
could you say that again?
Can you ask that question again?
Yes. The question is, should the Madison School District increase the number of choices parents and students have when it comes to schools, class
Right,
structure?
yeah, I got it now, thanks. Absolutely, I'm a big admirer of George Bush Sr. I happened to be in New Orleans for that 1988 convention when he gave the speech calling upon America to have 1,000 points of light shine. What he meant by that was there's so many different ideas out there, let's not make a one-size-fits-all. I certainly don't accuse the Madison schools of doing that, but it's interesting that the two candidates to either side of me here had to go outside the Madison School District in order to realize their dream. They have, believe it or not, they've got Scott Walker to thank for that. He started the Office of Educational Opportunity. It's too bad those schools could have been in the Madison School District. We lost an opportunity there. I would change that, but I would make the Madison schools, public schools, I'd up their game so they can compete with anyone.
See, Colleen?
Yeah, people probably don't know this, but I was going to convince the Latino community starting in Wichita Mundo for the very purpose that they were interested in engaging in the language and culture of their children. And we knew that would be something that every child and parent would want many parents would want for their children. How you do it? I think we've got an amazing group of teachers we do in our school district. We also have an amazing resourceful community.